What up, fam? Agent O here, not with another action figure review, but more of a rant about action figures, mainly the Transformer third party companies. Third party companies like Fans Project, TFC Toys, Perfect Effect, Make Toys, iGear, etc., etc. You know, they make good quality figures. I'm not gonna lie. I'm really impressed with what they've been doing so far. The few figures that I have, I'm happy with overall. Their design and paint applications are very well done. There's really a great attention to detail on every single character that I've seen. They're very detailed reimaginings of the licensed characters. I mean, they resemble the licensed figures just enough that, but there's enough differences that they can get away with, licensing issues and kind of make these characters their own. Their transformation schemes are pretty well thought out. They're fun to transform, and they can be simple but complex in like both their design and their execution. Then these companies, they're doing things that for whatever reason Hasbro hasn't even done yet, like making better combiner characters or combiner characters that we haven't seen in any lines for like years, like Menasor and Bruticus. They're adding to existing licensed Transformer lines, like how Fans Project did the City Commander add-on trailer for the Generations Classics Optimus Prime Ultra Magnus, or how they're doing figures from lines that don't even exist, like the Night Morpher, whatever it's called, from the Hearts of Steel IDW comics that they did for the Transformers. Why Hasbro hasn't done any of these things yet is just beyond me. It's stupid, and they're really missing out on potential sales, and they're missing out on money basically. These companies are basically putting Hasbro to shame with the things that they've accomplished. I mean, just look at the Fans Project Bruticus compared to the Fall of Cybertron Bruticus. I mean, there's just no contest. I would rather go out and pay the eBay scalper price for the Fans Project Bruticus than I would for the Fall of Cybertron Bruticus. As a matter of fact, that whole Fall of Cybertron line has been complete hot garbage. With the only exception so far being the Shockwave figure and possibly the Starscream figure, because that actually looks really good. I'm probably gonna end up picking up that Starscream. But those are the only two figures that have caught my eye that I was like, yo, I'm getting that, as soon as it comes out. Everything else is just look like complete ass. And Hasbro needs to step their game up. Now, after giving, props to these third party companies, I think we really need to just acknowledge the fact that these third party developers they're nothing more than fancy bootleggers. I mean, calling them a third party company is just a fancy way of giving legitimacy and justification for promoting blatant bootlegging on websites and on online stores. Now, I'm not somebody who is against watching bootleg movies or listening to pirated movies or music. If the material sucks, then I don't believe you should have to pay for it. Now, someone could say, but Agent O, people worked really hard to make that shitty music or movie. And I can say, but I can work really hard to push out a piece of poop from my ass, but my toilet, or anyone else for that matter, isn't going to give me any money for it. If a consumer product sucks, both licensed and unlicensed, then you shouldn't have to pay for it. It's that simple. I mean, that's the stance I take with anything that I buy, and that's the stance I take with Transformer figures especially. My issue with third party figures isn't about the quality of the product, because the quality, like I said, it's great. They're really putting in that work. It's the price of these said products that I have a major problem with, and it has for the most part prevented me from purchasing some of these figures. I mean, generally third party figures can cost anywhere from $50 to $100. Usually they're about $100. I mean, how can anyone? I mean, I can't even justify paying $100 for one figure, especially when you know that if Hasbro were to release that same figure, it would cost a little over $14. I mean, come on, $100 as opposed to $14. I could take that $100 and buy four or five other figures for the cost of that one. I mean, it just doesn't, do the math, man. Basically, since when do we pay more money for the bootleg than for the actual licensed product? I mean, what part of the game is that? I mean, even if the quality of the bootleg is better than the licensed product, it doesn't justify the increase in costs. And I'll give you a prime example of why this is asinine. Now I don't know how old some of you people are, but back in like the late '90s to early 2000s, you know, Burberry, the clothing company Burberry was like all the rage. You know, every woman had to have a Burberry scarf or bag or article of clothing, whatever have you. And that stuff was really pricey. I mean, the stuff that was pricey was actually the cheap stuff compared to what the really pricey stuff costs. Just go to the Coach outlet store if you have one by you, and just look at their bags. Those bags are expensive, but then like if you go on their website and you see how much their real bags cost, like this is an idea of how expensive Burberry was. Now, I remember going down Canal Street in New York and seeing people buying knockoff Burberry scarves. Now, Burberry, the name of the knockoff, by the way, was exactly like the Burberry in every way except for the checker pattern. In fact, you couldn't tell the two apart unless they were side by side, and that was only because the checker pattern on the Burberry was changed to avoid legal issues. They used the exact same stitching and material as the Burberry, but it was at way less. I mean, it's at a fraction of the cost that you would pay for the licensed product that you, the consumer, would pay. So, why is the cost of these figures so high? I mean, they're not clothes, they're just action figures. I mean, I can't imagine that a third party company's production costs are that much higher than Hasbro's. I mean, they're not pushing out the same numbers as Hasbro when it comes to the number of units being shipped to and all around the United States. I mean, just think about the number of units that are being shipped to every Walmart in the country. I mean, Walmart, that number alone has to be astronomically high. I mean, I can think of 5 different Walmarts off the top of my head that are just in my city alone, and I live in Columbus, Ohio. That's not counting all the other Walmarts in Ohio, let alone the rest of the country. So, third party companies don't ship like that. Their inventory goes to online toy stores, and then we buy the figures and in most cases pay for shipping. Like if you buy from TF Source, obviously if you pay up to, I guess, after $150 worth of figures or whatever, they give you free shipping. So, you can avoid paying shipping, but, you know, these companies aren't paying as much as Hasbro or Takara Tomy is paying to ship these figures. And I guarantee you it's going to be a lot less because you get discounts with UPS or whatever mail shipping company you work with. As a company, you get discounts for shipping bulk orders. So if they're sending out 100,000 figures, they're not going to be paying the kind of price that you think they would per figure. So they're saving money in that respect. Now, I personally don't think that they're at the same level of mass production that Hasbro is at. So I can't imagine that the cost to make these figures from concept to finished product and box art to online virtual toy store shelves warrants the price hike. I understand that they're a smaller company, so some things can get costly. If I knew more about how much those materials, labor, and shipping logistics and stuff like that costed, I could comment more on the subject. But with that being said, my opinion still stands. I still just don't feel that most of these figures prices are marked. I still feel that these prices are marked up exorbitantly. I mean, and I feel like they're marked up for nothing more than the sole purpose of, taking advantage of the large Transformer fan base that exists. If fans didn't immediately take that stupid ass mentality of take my money now, or I'm throwing money at the computer but nothing is happening, oh god, I can't wait to get this figure, if people actually would demand lower prices and not pay for figures until they then till they actually make these things happen, I guarantee you they're gonna cut costs, they're gonna slash the costs, and make them more reasonable, and they're still going to make a profit. Because I see all the time on websites a lot of people don't buy figures because of that reason alone. Is it's just too much money. Now, I admit that I'm guilty of supporting third party companies and buying some of their figures, but as you can see, I own some of the figures and some of the add-ons from third parties, but I did not buy, and I didn't pay full price for every single figure except for the PE11 SFX and the Perfect Effect RC figure. Everything else I paid less than sale price for. The City Commander that I own is actually the knockoff version of the Fans Project toy. The Ultra Magnus underneath it is actually a Hasbro figure, but you could kind of say that I bought a knockoff of a knockoff when it comes to, that City Commander figure. The biggest problem of all, though, doesn't come from third party companies. It actually comes from Hasbro itself. I mean, for whatever reason, Hasbro isn't paying attention to the fact that people are actually willing to pay these exorbitant prices for these figures strictly because these are the figures that they want. I don't know what their marketing department is doing, but they need to be fired because all you have to do is hop online and look at the sheer number of people buying these figures and saying, we own the rights to these actual figures. We know what they're doing. We should make our own versions of our own licensed product and sell them to the consumer because obviously this is what they want. I guarantee you, if or even this, you could even do this. You could wait for somebody like Perfect Effect or Fans Project to put out a figure. You could literally buy that figure, rip it apart, figure out how they put it all together, retool the mold and the look of the figure, and then put it back out as your own because it's your own licensed product anyway, and you could sell it for less than what they're selling it. I guarantee you, people will sit there and they will wait until that figure comes out and buy it from Hasbro before they'll buy it from the third party companies, strictly because nobody wants to pay that much money for a figure. Anybody who does, I guarantee you, they would go and pay the lesser price. These third party companies, they basically exist because of Hasbro's lack of quality figures and the fact that they're just not listening to what the fans want. If Hasbro rectified that problem, third party companies would have a hard time trying to make it. I mean, I'm not saying this because I'm a diehard fanboy of Hasbro. I just want quality Transformers at reasonable prices, plain and simple. I mean, Hasbro or Takara, they need to step their game up. They they need to either start hiring some of these third party companies and have them making their own licensed figures, or like I said before, as soon as a company releases a figure like Devastator, you buy a set of those figures, change the molding, a little bit so it looks like the official Hasbro licensed character, and then sell it as an official release. I mean, imagine how many people would want to buy the Hasbro version of the TFC Toys Hercules Devastator figure, and it's not like TFC could fight it, as seeing as TFC is making a version of Hasbro's own product. Personally, I just want to see Hasbro step their shit up and start making better figures, so that I don't have to spend so much. I could spend that same amount of money on buying that figure and then buying other figures. It just paying that amount of money that crazy amount of money just doesn't make sense to me. But that's pretty much my reasoning behind these third party companies, and that's how I feel about them. Basically, they do great work, but I don't think their prices warrant the amount of money that they're charging for them, and that's my stance on it. If anybody knows more about what their costs entail and why stuff is that expensive, please get at me in the comment section or whatever, and let's talk about this, because I really do want to know more about how these companies operate. But that's pretty much it for now. My 15 minutes is about up until YouTube starts allowing me to make longer movies. I got to cut it off right about here. So I'm out of here. This is Agent O. Peace outside. I'm out.